Morning, everybody. So you guys have been there when I needed you the most, and I promise you, I really want to do some good with this show. Unfortunately, the video you're about to see was shot a couple days before my wife's incident, so it might be just a little bit snarky, but it does come from a good place. I think it offers a real value to the home musician, and it's kind of one of those cases like, I can't believe I missed this. This just sounds way too good. So please watch the video, and if you could, please hit the subscribe button. It would really be a gigantic help. And then hit a playlist, because I'm still not cranking out videos quite as fast as I would like to. I'm just starting to get back into production, but I'm having to drop a lot of things and go to the hospital every day. In fact, I'm out of here in about an hour. So please enjoy the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks. All right, gather around, ya tone sheep. Let me guess, you're all still running your 5150 into a vintage 30 because, hey, why bother having your own sound when you can just literally copy every single metal guitar player on the entire freaking internet? That's certainly going to get your band noticed, and legions of fans will be lining up at your gigs because of it. All right, I get it. You're delusional. So let me introduce you to something just a little bit different, the ADA MP1. Here's a sound that might actually set you apart. That is, if you've got the balls to try it, but probably not because you're too scared to try something that hasn't been pre-approved by the social media echo chamber. Once upon a time, guitars were hauling around giant back-breaking stacks. Fender Twins, Marshall Plexis, whatever they could get their hands on, all in the pursuit of that holy grail tone. And then the 80s happened, and suddenly we were all introduced to the Rockman. Tom Schultz of Boston thought, hey, why bother with real amps when you can just plug into this tiny plastic box and sound like every single radio hit of 1985? And people ate it up. You couldn't turn on a radio without hearing it. Boston's Amanda, Kenny Loggins' Danger Zone, and Def Leppard's Hysteria album all had that glossy, chorus-drenched Rockman tone. Even ZZ Top jumped on the bandwagon with Sharp Dressed Man and Legs. It was the audio equivalent of Hairspray. Big, shiny, and completely artificial. But here's the catch. While the Rockman was great for making you sound like background music in a mall food court, it wasn't exactly setting the world on fire for metal tones. You want that punchy, aggressive, melt-your-face-off distortion? Well, Rockman was okay, but it still didn't quite deliver the goods. It was like bringing a squirt gun to a flamethrower fight. Then, in 1987, the ADA MP1 roared onto the scene. The MP1 took everything that the Rockman couldn't do and said, hold my Rubik's Cube. It wasn't just a little box that made you sound like every other coarse-drenched lipstick junkie out there. It was a rack-mounted beast built for players who actually wanted their guitars to sound dangerous. We're talking about programmable presets, actual tube circuitry, imagine that, and enough gain to make your drummer cry for mercy. And the best part, it didn't come with pre-baked one-size-fits-all presets. No, you actually had to use your ears and dial in your sound, or in this case, punch a bunch of buttons. So while everyone using the Rock Band was stuck wondering why they sounded like Boston's B-sides, the ADA MP1 was quietly becoming the secret weapon for players who wanted to stand apart. It became the go-to for metal and shred guitars who were sick of playing their guitar with a sound courtesy of Black & Decker. And now, thanks to Nimbrini Audio, this legendary preamp gets a second life in digital form. It's a different kind of sim, one that looks back at a unit that's been sadly and wrongfully forgotten. If you're still clinging to cookie-cutter tones and chasing the trends of today, well, this might not be for you. But if you've got the guts to break away from the pack, the MP1 sim might just be your ticket out of tone clone hell. So let me tell you about a little surprise I got the other day. I'm working on a project with my buddy Eric T for Spectre Digital's Icon Classic Rock drums, which should be coming out any day from now. He sends me a rough mix and I'm sitting here half listening and suddenly I'm like, what in the name of Crom is that guitar tone? It's got this late 80s, early 90s thing going on. Crunchy, punchy, and dripping with character. None of this cookie cutter nonsense we hear so much in every single modern metal mix. So I hit him up and asked him like, dude, what the hell are you using on this? And he casually goes, oh yeah, that's an ADA sim. Now, this is where my brain short circuits for a second because I actually have a real ADA MP1 sitting here in the studio. Now, I was all set to do a video on this back in 2020 and then COVID hit and everything went to shit. That project got shelved and I pretty much forgot about it. It's just been sitting there collecting dust and now I'm thinking, wow, I might have missed the boat on this one. So here I am facepalming because this plugin version just so damn different from the dime a dozen tones everybody's cranking out today. It's got a nostalgic edge, but it's not in a cheesy rehashed way. It's kind of like finding a classic car that's been restored, not some mass-produced piece of junk that you'd find at every car show. This tone actually stands out, and it's not the same old 5150 into a vintage 30 sound that everyone and their dog is using on Instagram these days. But here's where it gets even crazier. You guys remember that video I did a couple weeks ago, the one where some jackhole was pretending to be me, trying to scam free software from companies? Well, it turns out that this scammer actually hit up Nimbrini Audio. So I'm already talking to them like, hey, by the way, that's not me, but I would be interested in checking out something of yours for real sometime down the road. And wouldn't you know it, Eric T's rough mix that had me doing the double take? Yeah, that's using the Nimbrini Audio ADA MP1 Slim. So now, thanks to some random dickhead who thought it'd be a great idea to impersonate me, I'm suddenly checking out this plugin that's recreating a piece of gear I've had sitting idle in my studio for the last 4 freaking years. Talk about an unexpected turn of events. All right, here's why this is so important. The ADA MP1 wound up on a ton of records, some of which are my absolute favorites. Now remember, this was just a preamp, so you'd still have to plug it into an amp. And back then, before the 5150 came out way back in '92, that usually meant a Marshall. And in those days, the JCM 800 ruled supreme. So where did the ADA MP1 wind up, and why is it such a big deal? Well, it's the sound of the lead guitar on Painkiller. Yeah, the epic melt your face off solo on what might be the heaviest song ever written that was not death metal was an ADA MP1. And that's just not any tone, that's the tone. That is Glenn Tipton destroying the universe tone. It was also all over Testament's Practice What You Preach. Marty Friedman used it all over Rust in Peace for his solos. And then you've got guys like Paul Gilbert, Nuno Betcourt, and even bands like Death, Death Angel, Obituary, and Cannibal Corpse. They all had the ADA on their record at some point. Now here's what I don't understand. Why the hell is this thing not being used anymore? Yeah, I know there's a million amps out there and a million Sims out there, but they all seem to be kind of chasing the same thing, that Soldano 5150 thing, or the vintage Marshall thing. It's almost like everybody's afraid to try something different. Question: how do you turn a room full of metal guitar players into a bunch of sniveling babies? Simple. Show them something different. Let's be clear, that's just the sim using the Painkiller setting. Nimbrini was smart enough to include a simulated power section and even an IR loader, and that's how it sounds so great right out of the box. It's seriously badass. I can definitely see this becoming a go-to when I want to mix things up and not sound like just another 5150 clone. Now here's the real question. How does it stack up against the real thing? Is it doing the same thing a real piece of ADA hardware does? Let's plug in the rack mount into a real amp and see what we get. For the record, I don't have a JCM 800 handy, but I do have something even better. This is the Lulis signature amp from Tube Workshop. Uwe Lulis, the rhythm guitar player for Accept, he's a good friend of mine, and he had this amp custom built. It's basically a hot-rodded JCM 800, and it's the perfect beast for blasting out the kind of sound that we're chasing here. Hit that subscribe button, and in my next video, I'm gonna show you not just why the Marshall sound was so important to metal, but why you might want to look at builders other than Marshall these days for that kind of sounds. Like maybe check out my friends over at Tube Workshop. So let's lay down a song using both the Nimbrini and a real ADA into the Lulis amp. And to make this happen, we're going to be using the United Studio Technologies replay box, and we're miking up a Harley Benton cab loaded with Celestion greenbacks using the most killer guitar mic ever conceived, the Lewitt 640 Rex. Okay, that last part isn't exactly true. The 640 Rex is actually a kick drum microphone that just happens to rule on metal guitar. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention, there is one band out there that used the ADA to sell millions of records, and that's Queensryche. Hit it! Now comes one of my favorite parts of doing these kind of videos, and that is when we look at the frequency response graphs and not just pull opinions out of our asses, but actually take a look at a real measurement about what's really going on. Once again, both these clips went through the Uvalulis Tube Workshop amp and out into a real cabinet, but one is being driven by the software and the other is being driven by the real ADA up here. And if we take a look here in purple, I've got the real ADA, and then I've got the Nimbrini sim here in green. And if we compare the both of them, we zoom out here a little bit, it's pretty damn close. Again, the one part we really got to pay attention to is between 100 hertz and 10K. And it's almost spot on, except, you know, the software seems a little bit louder just across the entire spectrum. It only seems to match up a dead-on match somewhere around 725 hertz, which is kind of right in the mid-range. So it might be a little bit brighter, a little bit bassier. Mid-range is pretty damn close. But again, I'm sure if I'd maybe turned up the output on the hardware 88, it would probably match up just a little bit closer. We don't get any kind of crossover to about 30 hertz, which you're never going to hear on a mix because you're going to be rolling that part off. And even in the top end, it looks pretty close, completely across the board. I gotta say, I'm very impressed with that. I think Nimbrini did a really, really fantastic job with this. I think a really cool application for this, if you ever wanted to do this live and you can't get your hands on a real 88, you could literally bring a laptop and hook it up to a live amp and run it as basically a software 88 in a real situation, and it would sound absolutely fine. Here's the proof right here on the screen. All right, I gotta admit, the Nimbrini 88 MP1 sim blew me completely away. I didn't expect it to hold up against the real thing, but damn, it absolutely does. And the best part, it's on sale right now and it's only $29.99. At that price, you'd have to be a complete idiot not to buy it. Or maybe just too chicken shit to share your mix on one of those social media echo chambers where everybody's too busy patting each other on the back for using the exact same sound. So what is the sim and what's the real ADA? Let's run that one more time and reveal the tracks. All right, before I take off here, if there's one thing I want you to remember as you walk away from this video, it's this: never be afraid to try something new or to think outside the box, even if it means using retro gear. If you actually want to stand out, you gotta be willing to take a risk. So grab the plugin, fire it up, and show the world that you're not just another clone.